Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Jasmine Navarro, certified wellbeing coach, working with teenagers and supporting parents in educational institutions and also supporting wellbeing in companies. And as you know, every week I interview different experts who make a difference in people's lives. And today I'm super excited to be interviewing a very good friend of mine, Maja. Maja, so glad to have you on finally.
Yes, I'm super excited. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for coming on. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yes, so I'm individual and team coach, and I'm based in Amsterdam. And I've been working with teams. I have the feeling most of my lives, and team
Oh,
coaching, especially, is where, a lot of my passion is, to be honest.
oh, amazing,
Yes.
amazing.
Hmm.
And I know you do a lot of, team coaching, and I know you've studied a lot and you've trained a lot. And can you tell us a little bit about how your training has
Yeah.
impacted how you team coach now?
Yeah. So I actually got to coaching through work. And then I fell literally hell over, when I was kind of working in advertising. So
Oh, okay.
I used to work in advertising for about 20 years. And and then my CEO approached me and suggested some coaching. And
Yeah.
I literally fell in love with coaching. I really loved it. And so I started also my own journey, my own coaching journey, and kind of my training, and kind of built from individual kind of coaching to team coaching. Um,
What did
for
you love? Sorry to interrupt you. What did you love about coaching? You said you fell in love with it. Like what made you, what was
is You know what it is for me? It is a bit like fusing your brain and your heart together.
Wow.
And it is just kind of making you a bit whole, that you really fully understand yourself, inside and out. And at the end of my certification journey for coaching, I actually said to my whole team that for the first time, I really fell in love with myself, with everything, what's
Wow.
all, with the full shebang. And that made me incredibly proud and incredibly, I get really emotional talking about it now, but
Yeah.
it's really rewarding because you also understand more sometimes your behavior and where it comes from. And
Yeah.
and so things are kind of more falling into place. And
Yeah.
so that's
No,
what I really, but I think, that's where I think coaching is really valuable, that you also speak out and it's not just kind of churning in your head.
yeah.
Because when you speak it out, and sometimes it's for the first time, and sometimes you repeatedly speak out the same thing, then suddenly also things change. The energy changes, you
Yeah.
change.
You're right. It is all about energy, isn't it? But yeah, so you mentioned about team coaching.
Yeah.
So how does this, because you know, you hear a lot of coaching with individuals, one-to-one and groups. How does it change? Can you tell us a bit more about the team coaching? Because I know
Yeah,
it's very
so
relevant to
so
companies.
I started with individual coaching. Started with individual coaching, but in the past, in one of my previous life and my work in advertising,
Yeah.
I worked with very diverse and global teams. So I always really loved teams. I had big teams, and for me, it was always really important to kind of bring teams together. And I love especially the quotes, from Henry Ford, is that we all need to kind of move forward together, in
Oh,
order to succeed.
yeah.
And I truly believe that. And also, working with companies like Nike, it's just really, that is the key, I think, to success, that you leave the ego outside and that you look at the team as a whole and say, okay, how can we make this work? Look at people's strengths. And it is, you look at the overall system more or less from a top view. And then, because each system is, I don't know, they're unique. They have a unique individual kind of energy, the way of working, different kinds of strengths as well. And you can
Yeah.
build on that. And I think it's just about the majority, I think, is about building trust
Mm.
within the team, that everybody can actually speak up, because everybody is a voice in the system, that also in some ways also find their voice. And it's not that every voice needs to be heard. It is more about that every opinion needs to be heard. So that you have the different perspectives and that you can then build on each other, because in that way you can kind of grow. And you grow together as a team, build, trust, and also, I think you start discussing things and you're less judgmental. And that you can then also be more creative in creating the new way forward and resolving your own problems and finding the right solutions.
Wow, no, that sounds brilliant. So I guess it is very similar to coaching an individual, but it's about, well, I guess it's on a wider.
Yeah. It's of course on a bigger scale. In team coaching, it's less about the individual itself. It's about the system. It's about the team. It's and their dynamics.
And your impact on them as well.
Well, less so. It's more that as a coach, you facilitate, and depending on what. I think the question is also when you kind of interact and kind of or engage with a team coach. So there is also, of course, different ways of doing it. So you can, if it is bringing your company values to life, if you kind of have a new formed team, especially now that everybody's going back to the office, it's just kind of bringing everybody together, that really people actually get to know each other, and also, fusing them together. But sometimes it's also about, you have a merger acquisition kind of scenario where you have two different companies coming together. Then you have different roles and different agendas, and how can you make this work more smoothly, and kind of and take everybody on the way in some shape or form.
It sounds like it's like effective communication between them as well, really. How they communicate with each other.
Yeah, and I think it is also with team coaching, one of the first things that you always do is when you come into a system, or me as a coach come into a system, is that you kind of say, okay, let's set our agenda, how we want to interact as a team. How do we want to talk to each other? What's important to us? What are the values that we hold up? If perhaps it's sometimes company values, sometimes it's additional things. And also, how do we want to behave if things get a bit sticky and a bit difficult?
And I think it's so important, isn't it? Because you've got to have that clarity. Everyone needs to be on the same page, because you can make all kinds of assumptions, can't you?
I always say assumption is the mother of all fuck ups. So, it's I think it's also, if it's outspoken and if it's clear, then people also know how to maneuver. Boundaries. And it's just also to say what is okay and what's not okay. So it's so it's, and you can always check in, because sometimes we evolve, we change, the team changes, life is change.
You're right.
Also check in every now and then. Is this still valid? Do we need to change something? Especially with startup companies, they evolve and they go through rapid changes, especially in the first couple of years. So how do they want to kind of go to the next level? And what do they need to do?
What's the biggest thing you have learned from that training then about team coaching? What was like the biggest takeaway, or was it like a number of things? Like, if anybody's watching now, like, what do you think would be like the biggest thing that you learned from that?
I think for me, the biggest takeaway is we're all the voice of the system, but it's, as I said beforehand, it's not necessarily about each voice needs to be heard. So it's more about each opinion needs to be heard.
And what is the difference, actually?
The thing is, the voice is, not everybody needs to speak out or up. So you don't have to go around, because sometimes we just agree with something that has been said.
Yeah.
So then I don't need to repeat the same thing. So it's more about if there's differences, nuances, different opinions and so forth. And everything is welcome.
Yeah.
I think, as we also say, everybody's right, at least
Yeah.
partially. There is no wrong in that sense. And I think for me, the beauty is when you actually harness this change or this dynamic from the teams and harness that they kind of create their own change and how they want to change it, because that makes them really strong if they're part of it, part of the process in creating, building systems or change, or how to work together or how to achieve things or how to resolve problems. If you engage all of them, they usually come to a quicker, better solution.
Yes. And also about having disagreements, how beneficial that is to have disagreements and everyone being able to voice if they don't agree. What do you think about
Yeah,
that?
so I find it's also, of course, also cultural differences are also very interesting in
Yes.
these perspectives. So I'm German, living here now in Amsterdam. I'm quite direct, but the thing is, I find different opinions really important, because only if you fully understand the other person, have discussions about it,
Yeah.
you can also really try to walk in their shoes and understand, and then kind of try to build on it, on each other. And it also takes away a lot of the judgment.
Yeah.
I think if you have a discussion, but I think sometimes nowadays people shy away from discussions and prefer that everybody has the same opinion, which I sometimes
Feel safe. Yeah, it's not, it's an illusion, isn't it? You just think it's safe, but actually then might bubble up inside you,
yeah.
questions.
Yeah, and I think it's just also, if it is team leaders or companies, just need to create safe environments where people feel that they can really speak out and up, and that they're being supported, that it's also okay
Yes.
to make mistakes,
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And
That's what I was going to say.
yeah, because that is equally important, because you learn from mistakes and there's always things that you can do better, and how to improve it. The question is, how do you deal with it and take it, and actually use it as fuel?
Yes, yes. How we respond to things. It's the same as. And hi, Saeed. Saeed says, how to handle emotional intelligence at work. Do you mean as a team or as yourself? I don't know if you have any comments on this, Maya. I mean, I know emotional awareness, intelligence. I find that fascinating and life-changing myself. Being
I
able
think emotional intelligence is equally important. To be honest, at work, especially as a leader, you have to kind of be empathetic. You have to kind of understand how people tick and where they're coming from. I
yes,
think also now it's also, also really, yeah, I think it's really imperative that leaders have that, because at the end, we're all human beings. And I think if we as leaders come as human beings to work with everything, because we are one, with all, with our partner, with our private lives, with our work lives, and with our problems and so forth, they're all one, and they're all there and within
yeah.
us. So if we as a leader show up like that, I think everybody else feels more also secure showing up like that as well.
Set the tone. And as Saeed said, as an individual, and I do believe as well, everything, I agree with everything that you're saying. And also, I do think we do have a responsibility, don't we, to work on ourselves as well, and
Yeah,
a responsibility to ask for help
yeah. I
as
think
well.
I think asking for help is, I think it has started, and is, I think we're learning to get better at asking for help. But I
Yeah,
think that goes back to the situation, that you also understand your teammates' strengths and also your own strengths, and perhaps also the things perhaps things that you're not that good at, so that you can then say, hey, you know what? Why don't I ask this person or that person? And you know what? Because usually how it is, and if it's in personal life or also at work, if you ask people for help, the majority of people give you help. Sometimes they say, oh, I don't have time right now, or, because it's not the right moment. But overall, people are actually,
willing
and willing, and actually, feel a bit proud that you asked them for help.
Yes. And sometimes you just need to say something out loud and just have somebody listen, and like coaching, and we figure out the answers ourselves. Sometimes it's just having that acknowledgement, and I don't know, having somebody there to just listen, that can really help as well, can't it?
Yeah.
But thank you very much, Saeed. But yes, I guess individuals, teams, it's about working on ourselves at the end of the day. But what else would you like to tell us? Because I know you do so much with, teams, individuals. Like, how has it helped your life and had an impact on your life?
For me, it just overall, I think, made me realize, it's okay to change career. It's also okay to, you don't have to kind of, go the linear way, or, this is what you have to do for the rest of your life, because, that goes back to the change, managing change. We change, life changes. And what I fell in love with over 20 years ago, I now fell in love with something else. It's also okay, it's, also the world is changing. So, first of all, that, and then I think it is also with the individual, it's kind of, looking at you and being quite focused. With the team coaching, it is so complex. It's so three-dimensional. All the things that are happening, that are said, not said, the atmosphere that changes within, kind of team coaching sessions and so forth. And it's just holding also the space for that, and also preparing what can come, and how, what you want to also achieve in the outcome, is for me also, I really love that, because it has more complexity to it. I think the individual coaching has more depth, which I really like.
Right.
And the team coaching is the complexity of it, and just kind of helping, supporting them, how they can move on.
No, that sounds interesting. And what challenges would you say, what are the biggest challenges in the workplace at the moment around well-being?
I think the biggest challenges is kind of going back to the office, and just kind of some people go fully back to the office, hybrid working, still the trust, and then you have some people in office, out of office, those kinds of things. And that people also have to, after COVID, have to reconnect and start to actually be social again. Because we're also used to, after being behind screens, but then suddenly having perhaps also discussions face to face is also something different. But also, I think right now the job market is changing quite a bit. So, people are leaving their jobs, or they realize that they're unhappy. They're, with the company, perhaps, has behaved or communicated, or, over the last, a period, or when through difficult times, or that you also, that they also realized, okay, you know what, I've been doing this job now for so long, but it's not fulfilling me anymore. So I think there's lots more turnover, where you can also, me as a team coach can also, help, or me as a general coach can help and make that transition, if it's to a new job, or to kind of seeing, okay, how can we change the environment within the workplace?
Yeah, no, definitely. And it really seems like now people are so much more aware, and when we're talking about well-being, and people are actually looking at themselves a lot more, like you said, changing jobs. So thinking, okay, I can actually, maybe I'm not happy, and I can actually do something about it.
Yeah.
Rather than just staying and being unhappy,
Yeah, and be the change. I think, I think it's also being the change. And I think it's also about being heard and seen. People want to be heard and seen again.
Yes. No, I think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant, the work that you do, especially, with team coaching. I think every company needs to do this, don't they? It's a first step as well, because maybe some people don't want to be coached individually because they think that's too much. So I think the team, like you said, it's not as deep, as in depth.
Yeah, and usually I think a lot of the team coaching starts off, so some large companies already do it and kind of it's quite integrated. I see it a lot in startup companies when they kind of shift and kind of they go through different growth periods. So that's also where I see it. But a lot of the time it's also with conflict. When conflict happens within the company, that you kind of then have more, like almost like a couple counseling or a couple session where you try to flush it out. What is the issue here and why, where is this coming from and how can you, look forward together?
So basically you're creating that safe space to have that conversation so everybody can sort of get things off their chest in a healthy way.
I think conflict is also normal. We have conflict in our private life. Why shouldn't we have it at work? And I think for me, I always say better out than in, because I don't want it to kind of fester. And at work especially, it also creates really bad atmosphere, or a lot of bad politics. And if you address it and also normalize it, that things like that can happen, I think it's
I think you're right.
Is then also you integrate it into the culture.
Yes. But what about, because I know a lot of people, obviously they see the benefits of team coaching and everything, but I know some individuals would rather not. Maybe they attend the team coaching sessions, but they just will not open up because they just don't feel safe. They feel judged. Like, what would you say to that?
So I think kind of creating this alliance at the front of the session hopefully kind of gives everybody the opportunity to speak up and out, even if they say I feel uncomfortable or I don't have the feeling that this is safe, and that we can flush it out. I think also with team coaching, there's always people who say more or talk first. Other people that sometimes are slightly more quieter. And I think that is then also my job for me, or also when it's larger groups, I usually come also in pairs. So with a partner coach, and we meet, that we then pick that up and then saying, hey, do you have an opinion about this, or what are your thoughts about it? Or so, and the nice thing about team coaching, most of the exercises, what we're doing is also quite dynamic. So because it also changes. People change when they kind of move around, when they also do things with the different senses. And sometimes it is writing and drawing involved, or, walking around. Yes, because everybody is different and everybody also processes things different. So you have to give people enough space and time, and also different ways of, expressing themselves.
I love that. And like, when you're leading these sessions, how much would you talk about yourself? Like, do you become vulnerable in these sessions, or it's?
Usually I don't. I think it is, if it is individual or team coaching, it's if there is a purpose behind it that then there might. So in individual coaching sessions, if I can make a point and if I can bring something across, then I sometimes ask for permission to, if I can share an experience, for instance, that might also help, the coachee. Team coaching, it's sometimes you also have the feeling you feel something, but nobody's pinpointing it, that is the point where, I as a coach then step in and saying, okay, what is missing here? I have the feeling there's some energy that needs to, speak up out, or, that needs to be resolved. And so,
naming it basically.
I think it's naming it, and also in some ways also normalizing it.
I love that.
Especially sometimes you have it when people, have left the company, but you still, feel their energy, or so they call it lovingly ghost roles. So it's,
No, I love that, normalizing it, because naming it, normalizing it, because like we do say in coaching as well, nobody's right, nobody's wrong, and there's no judgment, and whatever comes up is normalizing it, because that in itself helps people feel relaxed, comfortable, get creative.
And I think overall with any coaching is, I think it's being curious about things, curious about yourself, curious about other people or situations, because just because you sometimes have one perspective or see it in one way, there's so many other facets on how it can be seen or interpreted. So, they make, hearing those can also enrich our lives.
Oh, yeah. It really is going with the flow, isn't it, as well? Being present and going with the flow.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just kind of also going with the flow, but with the team coaching, it's really, you also have to do a lot of prep work beforehand and after.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, that sounds a bit too,
but while you're in the session, yes, you go with the flow, but also it's holding it going with the flow in some shape.
That sounds better. Yeah, it's not like you just rock up and you're right. I guess you have to do the prep before so you can go with the flow.
Yeah, because sometimes you also notice like some things don't work with this group, and then you then you use something, other tools, or you kind of use something else, and you flex and see. Okay,
brilliant. Well, I think that's what makes the best coach. Reacting to the hi Saeed, thanks for the views, very resourceful discussion. Thank you so much, Saeed, for your questions.
Thank you.
And so we're nearly running out of time. I mean, I could ask you questions all day. So I was going to ask you something else and I've completely forgotten. What was it? It's just left my mind. With the team coaching, it's gone. Maja.
It's gone. Yeah.
It's gone.
It's like I think the tips. Sorry.
Yes. Oh no, carry on. We've got another question, but tell me.
Okay, no, go with another question. Otherwise, I'll perhaps.
Hi, Bob. How are you? Do you see the benefits from team coaching after a merger acquisition? Great question, Bob. Thank you.
Oh, definitely. No, thanks, Bob, for asking. I definitely see that, because it's also two different cultures, two different companies coming together, and they don't always see eye to eye. It's usually a numbers crunching kind of exercise, and kind of when they kind of merge together, but it's kind of bringing the people along and kind of actually making sure that all goes smoothly. That is sometimes put on the back burner or forgotten. Most of the time you look at how to integrate it really from IT and systems and all these kinds of things. But I think that the people are actually also, one of your biggest resources as a company. And I think the team coaching will also help people understand, is this a place for me? Can we talk about this uncertainty? Because, I mean, it's a scary thing, because you don't know, oh God, will I kind of lose my job now? Or is, where is my place within the hierarchy, or and so forth. So there's a lot of angst with people with mergers. So I think this also gives people a forum to speak out and up, and also to be part of it, so that they also have the feeling, hey, I'm part of the change going forward.
Amazing. And it's just amazing how it's actually quite simple when you think about it, but it can create so much positive impact.
Yeah.
And that's why we need more Majas. We need more Majas to do this. I mean, it is life-changing, and it can, without this, I mean, but okay. Thank you very much, Bob. That was a great question. And is there anything else you want to tell us about this before we go? And also, are there any sort of, like, if we have leaders watching and they have teams and maybe they're going through this and they're not sure what to do, is there anything that they could do to support their team if they don't have team coaching?
I think overall, as I said before, embrace everything. Be human, come, embrace yourselves fully, and also show yourselves fully. It's, let go of this armor and pretending everything is okay, when also sometimes, it's not. And you can also just saying, hey, today's not my day. Do you mind stepping in and just presenting or doing this? Because we've all been there. I think, being human, but also yeah, creating this trust, and just perhaps just having a 1 hour group chat, you know, or team meeting, and just saying, okay, you know, what do we want to bring? How do we want to behave with each other? What are our values? How do we see them? How do we interpret them? Because most of the time you have 4 or 5 different values, but nobody really knows what it means. They're so generic. So I'm just saying, hey, you know, what does that mean for us as a team? And especially, you know, as I said beforehand, if it gets sticky, if it gets tricky, if, you know, if there's a deadline looming, how do we behave, you know, when things go perhaps not as smoothly as they should? And, you know, some people need more space. Some people say, I retrieve, or some people say, I get really aggressive. Or then you also are aware how you can, you know, handle the different personalities.
Yeah.
But overall, I think stay curious and just be inquisitive and ask.
Have a conversation. Yeah, like you said, speaking
up. Have a conversations, ask questions rather than telling people.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much, Maja. And how can people find you?
People can find me on LinkedIn. My full name is Maja Seggerman. They can find me on LinkedIn. Otherwise, my website, majaseggerman.com. And yeah, if you have any further questions, do let me know. And always happy to have a chat about coaching.
Amazing. And if you like, Maja, you can put your link to your website in the comments on LinkedIn from this live. Perfect. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Maja. And yes, if you have any questions, please feel free to message Maja directly or myself, and you can ask us any questions in the comments too. And thank you so much, Maja. And I will see everybody else next week.
And thank you for listening in. Cheers. Bye.